Sam Goldblatt is an international arts and event producer and the author of The Complete Guide to the Greener Meeting and Event Industry. He's the first major international textbook on sustainable event management, which is very, very welcome as an academic, and we have NYU colleagues here. We know how this is important to the next generation coming into the workplace. Based in Scotland, he's the director of deBlanc Limited and a sustainable event consultancy. Currently producer of the Edinburgh and Glasgow 48-hour film projects. He's worked with events around the world, including Capital Fringe Festival, Edinburgh Film Festival, the Hamburg Harley Days, and China Fringe Festivals. You're just a fringy kind of guy. And, you know, and we're so pleased to have him here. So welcome to our table here, our author, Sam Goldblatt. And of course, I want to know, what was the inspiration for the book? I mean, how did you decide to write this?
Sure. Well, actually, I wrote, if anyone's familiar with the book Special Events that actually my father wrote, which is now in its 6th edition with Wiley and Sons. I've served as an editor for a long time, and last year he asked me to write, not last year, God, it was about 4 or 5 years ago, he asked me to write a chapter about greener meetings and events, a subject I've always been interested in, and as an events producer, always had been unconsciously trying to do things. And the more that I actually got into sort of researching the emerging trends that were going out there, the more fascinating it became understanding these sort of strategies that I always had been preferring myself, but hadn't sort of had to put a name to. And it's still very much an emerging industry, and it's as a lot of the people in the book say, it's something that we're trying not to make a separate industry. We're not trying to create a separate industry called the green meetings industry. We're actually trying to make the entire field of conferences, meetings, events, you know, all of those fields more sustainable. Yeah.
So how do you see ecotourism developing, evolving?
That is a really good question, Richard, because
She told me to say.
Right. Well, the key thing about tourism is the transportation, really. And that's also the key thing about any meeting or event. So you may have noticed in the invitation, you know, we encourage you to use the subway, etc. You know, how people travel to and from your event, you know, that's their, you know, small-scale tourist experience, traveling to this hotel. You travel to a conference. You know, how somebody travels there, their travel time is often at least as long or twice as long as the actual event. It's very important to think about that travel, how you can reduce that travel or make that travel more sustainable.
Now, here's a biggie, but I have to ask, social responsibility. What does that mean? That I should help homeless people in the street?
People desire social responsibility and environmental responsibility. People desire ethics, and they desire systems of values for your company and for your product now. It's very important, much more important than it was about 10 years ago when the economy was doing great and people were more interested in sort of the style of a product or the salary of a job. Now people are more interested in your social commitments. So we talk about corporate social responsibility. Yeah, so that's a very important aspect that really ties in with the whole idea of greener meetings and events. It's not just the environment, it's also your commitment to your staff, your commitment to your clients, your commitment to the host city that your conference goes to. So if you go to if you have your conference in, you know, Boise, Idaho, are you serving, you know, potatoes from a local farm, you know? Or did you just get them shipped in? Well, if you did, you're not having a social commitment to those farmers of that host city that's hosting you.
A few more questions, and we'll open it to the audience, because I don't want us to hog all your brain power. Let the audience get some thoughts in too. But what do you think are some of the new ideas that you kind of touched upon in the book that you'd want to share?
Absolutely. Well, that's these new sort of trends and the new design elements, like sustainable design, is the most fun part of this whole thing. And I think that's why a lot of us went into events in the first place, is the fun of designing a spectacular event. And there's lots of sustainable and environmentally friendly designs that can really add huge value into making any event unique. And you know, a lot of the emerging ones are really spectacular things, such as, you know, using solar panels to light outdoor sculptures that are powered by low energy LED lighting. The presence of solar panels themselves at outdoor events is quite a spectacle in itself. People love to actually see that, to understand how it works. So that concept of renewable energy that doesn't cost the earth, is something that people love. However, these are also kind of trendy things that are fun, but I think in terms of the long term and in lowering your environmental impact in the long term, some of the really simple things that are easier and are kind of almost more obvious but not as spectacular are, I think, the ones that will maybe have the longest life.
So your garb today is a wee indication of that as well. Because he told me, he shared with me, Sam, that he's wearing a recycled retro shirt.
I don't know, recycle, that doesn't sound the best.
But whatever, I don't know the proper term, but you're living proof of the theory
and
of...
it's green.
Yeah,
and it's green.
Green, totally green. So is all this a fad?
And the jeans are used as well, yeah.
So, but is all this really a fad, or is it really going to become, in the minds of people, a business strategy, a long-term business strategy? What do you think? Where are we going to find that tipping point to get people to not think it's just something trendy and important, and really realizing it's about how to do business correctly?
Well, that's the critical thing, and you know, there are a lot of trendy aspects to it, and even environmentalism. You know, everybody knows that environmentalism is in the public consciousness, and then it's out again. So I mean, in the '90s, we were all recycling like mad, and there was campaigns for it, and then kind of people you know, you didn't see it in the news as much, and now recently the renewable energy is all in the news. You have to find ways to make these environmental strategies sincere and meaningful to your core business. Things that add real value to your business, and you have to have a meaningful connection with your business. So understanding your waste output in a meaningful way, you know, talking to your garbage providers and thinking about how you can reduce your landfill deposit. Looking at your event design and thinking about which vendors can I source from that will have, you know, I can create a meaningful connection with them in the long term. So these are ways that I think can really make sure that we don't let it become a trend, okay? Because already you're seeing people say, oh yeah, that green thing, you know, we did that, and you know the client loved it. Now I'm on to my real events. Well, it's really about creating a meaningful connection to your event and understanding how all of these strategies can really create some, you know, added value to your event. And if you use them to create value to your clients and to your staff and to all the attendees at your event, then they will live on and they will improve your business, and then they will have that value.
Praise the Lord.
Okay.
So I knew you were going to do it, so that's why I did it. I know my audience, some of you, not all of you. I'm trying to figure you out. I'm working on it.
So when I did a little presentation in Moscow, you know, pretty tough crowd in Moscow. Obviously, it's the world's, you know, oil exporters. And but I was at a conference 4 event just like today with you know, imagine yourselves but in Moscow, all the event planners in Moscow. You can imagine it, right? And there's borscht and vodka and all of that, right?
Sounds good.
No, but it was in a you know, hotel similar to this, and I decided to start my speech because we were talking about the cost, we were talking about the expenses, right? So I decided to start my speech by showing this beautiful outdoor solar panel sculpture that was at the Coachella Music Festival, and people are dancing under it in the California moonlight, and this is a beautiful solar panel, and one guy in the front row shoots up his hand and he says, I don't agree with this, you know. Solar panels are, you know, I've done my research on the solar panels are, you know, it's too expensive. I don't think it's going to be long-term value, you know. It's not a sustainable thing. And you know, I was like, okay, whoa. It's like, you know, some of these strategies, you know, will cost you money. Some of these, and save you money maybe in the long term. Some of these strategies will save you money. You know, easy things like turning out the lights, you know, using, you know, energy efficient technology. Some of these things won't really have an effect on your money, you know. But they will all, the bottom line is they will all add value to the event. And obviously you would only do them if they added the value. Whether it's a design value, a design element, or whether it's an ethical value. Whether it's just the client wants to know that they're doing business with an ethical vendor, you know. So they will all add value. And by the end of my sort of 20-minute or half-hour speech in Moscow, the same guy stood up in front of the crowd, just like you guys are today, and he said, "I still don't believe in any of this stuff. It's a load of baloney. But from today on, I realize I have too much waste at my events, and I'm going to stop using plastic. I'm going to convert to paper so that I can recycle it because I want to reduce my waste." And then somebody else next to him stood up and said, "And that's not all. We're planting a garden at my son's nursery school, and I've got all of my clients coming to help plant the garden." And somebody else stood up and they said, "Yeah, no, we're helping people reduce their transportation." So in Moscow, where the environment is not the most thought of thing, here these people were, all of a sudden finding the ways that they could connect it to their business and realize that you only do it. You don't do it just to, get a little notch in your belt. You do it to add value to your event,
Sustainability is good business.
Right.
And that's the core of what we're all trying to get across. It's not about costs more or it's harder. It's just good business
Right.
to do it. And so you take your baby steps, and you take your baby steps. And soon, like a baby, you'll be walking then running. So I say take the steps and initiate.
In order for you to consider an event company to be labeled green, would you say that it needs to be at a certain percentage to be considered a green event company, or
Well, that's
is it enough that
mm.
you're just trying to implement some of these practices into your?
Well, that's why it's called greener meetings and events and not green meetings and events, because the whole point is to show everybody, absolutely anybody. And I really think, because I really also like to think outside the box, so we talk about theater companies and any kind of business professional, any kind of person that may be just starting in the meeting industry, or even planning, your sister's birthday party or something.
It's a great chapter. I can't put it down. And it's got piles of what we call key performance indicators on measuring green. And you're going to get this and not be able. In fact, I can't even talk to you anymore. So I'm sorry. Was there another hand over there? Sam has generously decided to contribute the $50 per book to the Green Meeting Industry Foundation, which is in formation, which we're very excited about because we're trying to launch several initiatives which is geared to education with students to do poster competitions and green ideas. I want to thank again Joe Koza and the wonderful Marriott Financial Equity. In this Humming Leads Platinum building we're all in that they regenerated. I want to thank Jill and thank Joanna for helping orchestrate all this. And I want to thank our wonderful author and congratulate him for taking a huge step and being a sustainable pioneer and leading the way so that we can all follow. So please make sure you get a copy of this book, because I'm not giving up mine. So anyway, thank you, Sam.